has written on Truth Social saying, looks like we've lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together. Donald Trump's Truth Social post lamenting that the US has lost India reflects the US's concerns over recent optics of closer ties among India, Russia and China, especially after their show of unity at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin that we saw earlier this week. But let me quickly get in some analysis from David Roche, Strategist Quantum Strategy, joining me. David, good evening from NDTV Profit, and thank you so much for your time. How are you interpreting Donald Trump's statement? Is this geopolitical realignment and as decisive as Trump suggests, or is it mainly tactical posturing is what we're seeing?
Well, you never know with Trump. You know, what he says today is not what he thinks tomorrow, if he ever thinks. But I mean, if Trump has lost India to darkest China, then he was the one who did it. So with his punitive tariffs on India, which then, in a sense, galvanized the whole of the global South, whether you talk about SCO or whether you talk about the BRICS. And they actually got galvanized and got energetic about creating some economic and political substance to the previous narrative, which was really an association of states which didn't have a lot in common. And now they're looking for ways to have more in common. So I think it is a very real realignment of India and many other countries which realize that American power under Trump is declining, and that it is the sort of power which has been exercised in a manner which is hostile to their interests. So you shouldn't be surprised that there you have a global realignment. The global realignment is there for keeps. The question is, can they really make it economically stick? Can they make the trade they do between themselves, for example, more important and bigger than what they do with the US? These are the sort of questions which remain unresolved, but the direction is absolutely clear.
So what is India's engagement then with China and Russia at this SCO summit signal for global financial markets and even currency trends? Let's remember Trump's comments, and he has been silent, I'd like to say, which is a little out of character for him, especially with China and Russia, particularly pushing de-dollarization at this point of time.
Well, I'm not sure that Trump understands the mechanization, the mechanisms of de-dollarization, but obviously what he can understand is that if there is more trade and economic interfaces between China and the global South and between India and the global South and China, then clearly they're not going to want to use the US dollar. Why would you actually turn away from the US in terms of trade and turn to the US in terms of using its currency for all purposes? So he understands that threat. What he does not understand is that one of the reasons this is happening, one of the reasons why people want to get rid of the US dollar is because they see the US as being a less reliable place to keep the money. And the reason they see it as a less reliable place to keep their money is because all sorts of measures by the US go against their interest. And of course, they're being threatened by the kind of economists that Trump employs with taxing foreign holdings of dollars, with penalizing foreigners who hold the dollar and push the dollar up in, according to Trump's credo, to uncommercial, uncompetitive levels. Now, he wouldn't understand the mechanism that if you address one issue, which is solve the US current account deficits and get a lot of tax money from places like India to fund your budget deficits, then at the same time, what you're doing is you're damaging the willingness, the motivation for other countries to hold the US dollar, and therefore automatically you are making the US dollar less of a global reserve currency, less of a transaction currency. I don't think he understands the complexity of what he's doing, but I'll tell you where he's going. He is going to make the dollar a less, not an unimportant currency in international trade and reserves. He's going to make it less important, and that means the dollar will go down.
All right. And, before I let you go, David, if, in your view, how should multinational investors adjust their portfolio if we're looking at India, we're looking at Russia and China, increasingly synchronizing policy at this point of time, a risk scenario that you've actually cited for market instability for the rest of the year?
Well, I would say that the effect of most of the things I'm talking about are long term. It will take a long time in order to cement the BRICS into something which is not just geopolitically significant, but economically significant and coherent. So it will take time. But if you look out 10 or 15 years, when I will not be there, so you won't be able to tell me that I was wrong, you will see that people will reallocate an increasing portion of their portfolio to places like China, to India, to Brazil, and the global south in general. That will be the general trend. And the question is, what is the currency which this is going to be in? And I would suspect that it will probably be the renminbi, with the euro playing quite a subsidiary role, an important subsidiary role, because it is managed on a decent basis.
Right. David Roche, thank you so much for that. Donald Trump finally breaking, whether we can call it silence, is something that remains to be seen. But these comments coming in as the SCO summit concluded, which was a pivotal backdrop for Trump's comments, as we saw the Prime Minister, Vladimir Putin, and Xi Jinping seen together showcasing diplomatic warmth and strategic engagement and all of the other key outcomes that we saw, and Donald Trump's comments coming in light of that. We'll continue tracking the story and bring you the latest developments.